This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
This week, the Cyprus Marine and Maritime Institute signs an MOU with the Cyprus Space Exploration Organisation.
We will be uniting forces to try to do our best as Cyprus and in cooperation with other international partners, so that this is not just an effort for Cyprus, but this will be an internationalized effort.
Who's pulling whose leg about deviations in the Akamas Plan?
The ministry came today to the parliament to say that there are possible infringements, but we are not in the full position, while the environmental authority itself recognizes it in writing.
And the Department of Forests is encouraging us to buy real Christmas trees in pots.
This technique will benefit the environment and offers multiple benefits since we can use it over and over again.
The Cyprus Marine and Maritime Institute and the Cyprus Space Exploration Organisation recently signed a Memorandum of Understanding. So from the CMMI and from the CSEO, we've got Zacharias Siokouros and George Danos to tell us what it's all about. So can I start with you, Zacharias? A Memorandum of Understanding about what?
Well, the actual memorandum provides various sectors where we could work together with CSEO, where research can, on both the space and the sea, can be combined to produce meaningful results to the benefit of our planet, first of all, and of course to our mutual research interests and the production of knowledge.
I find it fascinating that it seems that you're going to use the space part of this to look under the sea? Is that right, George?
Yes, the space technologies are offering quite a bit to studying our planet, what we call Earth observation. And space technologies allows us to also look at the surface of the sea to see if we can spot oil spills, if we have plastic, if we monitor traffic that shouldn't be happening. For example, illegal migration or tankers that might actually be losing their containers and floating on the surface of the sea. So all these things you can actually see from space. Now, it's not possible to see under the surface. And therefore, we are covering from space through the air up to the surface of the water, and then CMMI is basically utilizing the data that we will be getting from space and carrying on the research from the surface below and also what's happening on the surface. So we're uniting forces here to make sure that the common goal, which is to protect the ecosystem, the living planet, and of course the seas, the oceans, are one of the most important elements for the survival of life, not only just in the oceans, but also on the land. We are dependent on what's happening in the oceans. We see the bleaching of the corals. So all these things, we will be uniting forces to try to do our best as Cyprus and in cooperation with other international partners, so that this is not just an effort for Cyprus, but this will be an internationalized effort.
That's a bit disappointing. I was thinking of things like our sea grasses, which are critically endangered in some areas around Cyprus, but you can't see those from space. Zacharias, are you working presumably on things like that at the Institute?
Exactly. This is what I was going to say. First of all, just to add on, George, something that is maybe well known to scientists, but it's good to be repeated, is that the ocean, beyond many other things, regulates the climate on our planet maybe more than anything else, even more than the forests that we usually associate with the climate change. So knowing what is happening with the ocean and modeling the ocean, which is the aspiration of scientists, will help us understand better how it's affecting the planet, but also how we are with our activities as humans. We are sometimes damaging the ocean and all the goods that brings to us. Then on what we can see, as George said, we can see from space the surface of the ocean. We, from our side, with our own tools, we may don't have the satellites of George, but we do have our own unique equipment which can travel both on the surface but also under the surface. We can provide this additional view of what is happening below the surface. By coincidence, one of the SDGs, one of the United Nations goals in relation to sustainable development, it's actually named like this, below the sea. And we are getting ourselves the know-how at CMMI, but also the very expensive tools that will allow us to go under the surface, explore the ocean, because another common thing that we have with our space colleagues is that both this space is unexplored to the largest part of it, but also the oceans, more than 80% of the oceans are still not explored, although they are on our planet. So we have a lot to learn exploring both these huge spaces.
George, if I come back to you, what's the first sort of area that the CSEO will be looking at and passing the information on to the CMMI?
I'm delighted to say that the ethos and our energy to work, we say in Greek, zizanio for work, is very strong in both entities. And therefore, as soon as we signed the MOU, we didn't just go like CMMI back to their offices and we back to ours. We sat down until late at night. We were discussing endlessly different ways we can cooperate. That shows that strong spirit that exists between the two of us. And we all already looked at which other partners we're bringing, how we can take the effort from Cyprus to the bigger picture, the Atlantic Ocean and other oceans, and how we're going to utilize space technologies, what things we're going to do from space, what we're going to study from space, and we identified various methodologies and or opportunities by which we can grow and bring further people in this consortium that we're creating of partners, and then create also job opportunities to young people to come and engage this effort, which is for all of us, for our country and for our planet.
What had you finally decided were the things to prioritise?
I can't say too much, okay, because some things cannot be said publicly, but I can say that we have identified partners from other countries within Europe that are of critical importance to what we will be doing, specific programs and research that we will be doing, and specific KPIs, key performance indices, that we will be basing our research on to bring results. But at the same time, how all this will not be just for the environment, but also for a sustainable blue economy, because these two are counterbalancing each other. You can't just have environment, which, we all care about the environment, okay? And we have to protect the environment at all costs. But at the same time, you have the other side, which is basically saying, what, are we going to die without any economy? So we are also working on that side. We're balancing the two to have a beautiful synergy.
Zacharias, can I come back to you one more time and ask about the role of the CMMI when it comes to formulating policy? Because I presume that your institute is relatively new, as I recall, because I seem to remember talking to somebody when it was set up. And you must surely have an input into the government when it comes to environmental policy, for example, particularly pertaining to our oceans.
Just to add on, George, because I like the discussion you had earlier. For me, the most exciting, although I know my colleagues very well, what really excited me, I came and I was telling my management meeting an hour ago that I was so excited to see the talent that we have in Cyprus. I mean, listening to my colleagues discussing with George and his colleagues last night, for me it was really exciting of how they were combining their specific knowledge on space technology, sea technology, artificial intelligence, and other technologies. For me, it was exciting. We do have these discussions every day, but when you suddenly realize that these people are Cypriots and we are trying to do something in Cyprus, for me, it was maybe the best value that we offer to Cyprus. Now, going back to your question, yes, we feel as one of the centers that are actually funded by the Commission and the government of Cyprus, we feel one of our duties is to use our science to influence the policy decision making. We already issue policy papers. We have done it on 2 different areas already. One was in the blue economy in general and how Cyprus can play a more significant role there. And we also had a paper which we have circulated among the relevant authorities on how we can provide Cypriots with the right skills, blue skills in our case, in order to equip them with whatever is necessary to address the challenges, but also the too many opportunities that the blue economy offers, especially on an island state like Cyprus, surrounded by such a large and important sea area as the one Cyprus is claiming. So we do feel that we need to influence policy. The good thing is that the government, which is also our main funder, is listening. We have excellent relation with the relevant to us bodies of the government, and we exchange ideas on various issues, and we are trying to provide them with science-based policies. And this is truly an important role for all the research organizations of Cyprus to do, especially those who also get funds from the government.
Yeah, well, it certainly is, because if we feel that our policymakers are listening to the science, then I think we have a bit more confidence in them. Gentlemen, Zacharias Siokouros and George Danos, respectively from the Cyprus Marine and Maritime Institute and the Cyprus Space Exploration Organisation. Many thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
We spoke a couple of weeks ago to environmental NGOs who were greatly concerned about developments in our protected Akamas Peninsula. You may recall that after years of wrangling, finally an Akamas Plan was agreed. That includes the building of some roads, but the plan was very clear and legally binding about how wide those roads could be. Well, it seems that those rules have been broken. I've tried to get the Environment Minister to come and talk to us, but at the moment he's not willing to do that. So we're joined on this week's programme by somebody who was a scientific advisor when the plan was being drawn up. He is Klitos Papastylianou. And Klitos, I know that you're concerned that there will be degradation if, although the work for the moment has stopped, nothing is done to restore the situation before more winter rains cause havoc. But you've just come back from, I think, a meeting at our Parliament. Now tell me a bit about that. It sounds disturbing.
3 hours ago, I would be quite more optimistic. But right now, I think that we have to solve something else before going to restoration. Based on what has been discussed today in the Parliamentary Committee on Environment, it seems that we are going a step backwards. Right now, the competent authority, meaning the Ministry of Agriculture, Rural Development and Environment, actually questions, or at least is not in the full position to answer, 2 basic things. 1, is there any infringement of any legally binding term of the appropriate assessment? And 2, are the final, and I'm underlining the word final, construction plans in full line with those legally binding terms? It seems that for some reason, the Ministry of Environment today went far away from the statements made even by the President of the Republic of Cyprus. Right now we are questioning if there was any infringement, and if there was no infringement according to them, there is simply no need for restoration.
Hang on a minute. When I spoke a few weeks ago about this and was told very clearly that the road should be, I think, 4 metres wide, and that in places it's 10 metres wide. So that clearly is an infringement.
Rosie, there are 7 members of the Ad hoc Committee on Appropriate Assessment. 3 of them, 3 out of 7, are non-governmental organizations, the Federation of Environmental Organizations in Cyprus, BirdLife Cyprus, and Terra Cypria. The other 4 are competent authorities, the Environment Department, the Department of Fisheries and Marine Research, the Forest Department, and the Game and Fauna Service. 3 out of those 4, in written letters, they are stating officially that there are infringements. And they came today, the ministry came today to the parliament to say that there are possible infringements, but we are not in the full position, while the environmental authority itself recognizes it in writing. This is a clear case of a la Lumo. I mean, one day one thing, the other day another thing. And it's going like nobody wants to undertake its responsibility. And to come to your question, the basic things to be done. We are entering winter and the roads are still open. Earthworks are still there.
Let me get this straight, Klidos. The work has at least for the moment stopped, is that right?
Not actually. Based on what has been stated today by the General Director of Environment of the Ministry, no. The answer is no. The works has not been freezed.
Well, that's not what they told us last week.
I know, Rosie, that's not what they told to us as well. That's not what the President himself stated publicly. I mean, literally, there is one day one thing, the other day another thing.
Well, let me just say this. If the President himself has said that works must stop, which he clearly did, he was quoted in the press as saying exactly that.
I have personally been disturbed by the photos that I have seen. The exact quote was, I have been personally disturbed, the President said.
But he also said we must stop the work.
Exactly.
So are you telling me that the Environment Department, or rather the Ministry of the Environment, and perhaps the Minister of the Environment, are actually going against what their President told them?
It seems that yes, this is the case, based on what they stated in the Parliamentary Committee on Environment today, just an hour ago.
And what did the MPs say about this?
The MPs raised the most logical questions, I would say. Sorry. 1, was there or not infringement of legally binding terms? To be totally honest with you, and I think that goes for all of us within the room, nobody actually understood the real answer to the question. And the question, I think, is quite simple. Is there or not any infringement of legally binding terms? For example, if a term says that this road should be 5.5 meters, is there any infringement? This is a measurable answer. I mean, you are going there, you are measuring in situ on the field, and instead of 5.5, you are measuring 10. Is there an infringement? We have to see. We are still investigating. There is an internal administrative audit going on right now.
Well, okay, let's just go back a bit, because this Akamas Plan is in writing somewhere. Now, the only other thing I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the contract that was given to the contractor who's building this road did not specifically state in there the conditions that were mentioned in the Akamas Plan. Do you know if that's true?
No, that's not true. The procurement includes the terms, the legally binding terms of the appropriate assessment and all the other 2 actually environmental authorizations that were granted to the Forest Department. The problem is not the terms of the procurement. The problem is between the final construction plans, for example, showing 10 meters width, and the terms clearly stating 5 meters width. So nobody checked the plans, and the plans are not in line with the terms, and we're entering a vicious circle discussing the obvious things and not touching the flesh of the matter, not answering the actual question. Is there an infringement or not? On the ground, measurable.
I just find it difficult to get my head around the fact that clearly there is, and nobody is admitting to it. In the meantime, let's very quickly, because we have to wrap this up, go on to the damage that you think could be done during this winter. We've got all these earthworks, we've got earth all over the nearby fields and so on. If it rains hard, that's all going to become a mud slurry going where?
Going mostly to water streams like Avagas River or estuary or Aspros Podamos estuary, which you don't have to be an expert to understand that we are talking about wildlife corridors within the core area of the protected area. So there is the most obvious of all, loss of habitats. You should remove those hectares, but you have removed the double area. So those should be replanted, the excavations should be closed, the construction waste should be immediately removed from the area within the National Forest Park, and so on. But it seems that the only thing that they are discussing right now is, if we do that, what will be the economic impact between the state and the contractor?
I think that's probably why Cyfield decided that it would stop work until this was all cleared up, because it's going to end up with a huge bill.
To be honest, Rose, Cyfield is not the problem in a double sense. I mean, Cyfield says that I am willing to stop to do it properly, one thing. And secondly, most importantly, Cyfield is right to say that I'm just doing what the plans are showing. Nothing more than that.
Klidos, we really have to wrap this up. Who drew up the plans?
A private company based in Paphos with the Forest Department. And the Forest Department had full knowledge of the difference between the plans and the turfs.
Well, they're all under the Ministry of the Environment, so it looks to me like they better do something pretty darn quick about this. Klidos.
Last sentence, Rosie, sorry. The Minister of Environment was already exposed 3 times in 2 weeks. The Minister himself should take the responsibility and give the appropriate orders to those responsible for restoration of what has happened and conduct a full independent administrative audit on who is responsible and who we have to pay the bill, because someone has to pay the bill.
And at the moment that's going to be the people of Cyprus, because the place has been destroyed. Klidos, I'm sorry we have to end it there. We really have run out of time. Many thanks for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
It's that time of year again. People are out buying Christmas trees. Well, usually the forestry department here sells branches of trees cut from the forests, and occasionally the ones that they've weeded out in between to allow the bigger trees to grow. But they're urging us this year to buy a potted pine. That's a pine tree that's a whole tree, but it's in a pot, which means you'll be able to use it year after year if you look after it. How do you look after it? We're welcoming back to the programme from our forestry department, George Constantinou. George, great idea. I do normally buy a couple of pine branches, tie them together to make them look a bit like a Christmas tree, but this is a lovely idea.
Yes, that is a lovely idea. First of all, let me say something about the Christmas trees sold by the Forestry Department. This is the produce actually of sustainable management of Cyprus forests. That means that we carry out some thinnings during this period in dense forest plantations in order to remove some small trees in order to improve the growth conditions and reduce the competition in those forest plantations. Regarding the initiative now, on Monday, 27th of November, we have announced a joint initiative between Department of Forest and the Environment Commissioner for the promotion of natural Christmas trees. With this recommendation, trees will be preserved in pots so that will be reused in future years. This technique will benefit the environment and offers multiple benefits since we can use it over and over again. Trees will be decorated during Christmas, and all around other days we'll decorate, let's say, our gardens.
So basically you're saying you can bring the tree in over Christmas and then take the pot outside onto your balcony or your garden, look after it until next year and bring it back in again, and you've got a reusable natural Christmas tree.
Yes, that's exactly. It's a reusable Christmas tree. It both benefits the Christmas season and all the other seasons. And now I will give some general instructions of how we can take care of those Christmas trees in pots.
Yes, please do.
First of all, we need to water the plants according to the water demands of each plant. Each plant has its own water demands. Let's say some trees need more water and some others less water.
Can I ask you whether or not the watering instructions are available to people when they go and buy their tree from the forestry department?
When they buy trees, either from the Department of Forest, from the nurseries of the Department of Forest, or from private individuals, they should ask them how many times per week should they irrigate these plants.
That depends a little bit, doesn't it, on whether or not they're in a house that is warm with central heating, or whether or not, as you say, maybe they're outside as a Christmas tree, in which case, presumably, when it's cool like this, they don't need so much water.
Yes, that's correct, and I will explain later on how we can water them or trim them. We can apply basic pruning during the winter season in order to give the desired shape of this tree, according to our needs, according what we like. Less intensive pruning can be done throughout the year. We apply light fertilization during the winter season, and that's why we should ask from the point we buy those trees how many times per year we need to fertilize and what type of fertilizer should be used. And in case we detect any attack by, let's say, pathogenic organisms, let's say insects, mites, fungi, and so on, we can apply the use of plant protection products after taking to an agronomist or another specialized person. When moving the plant inside the house or transfer the plant from outside to inside, we keep the orientation it had in its original position. We do not place the tree near heat sources, let's say fireplace. Every 2 or 3 years, we can take our plant out of the pot and apply light root pruning and replace the potting soil in order to give more nutrients to the plant.
The great thing about this, I think, George, is the fact that a lot of people I know have said, and they're right, it's a shame to cut down trees for Christmas, but these, as you said at the beginning, are not being cut down. They're the thinnings from our carefully planted forests, so we're preserving them in a sense, and they're not plastic. I know people say, I bring out my artificial tree every year, but it is still plastic, and a lot of people do just throw them away afterwards, don't they? So we're doing something good for the environment as well.
Yes, we have to reuse any type. Let's say when we buy a plastic tree, we can have it, let's say, 5 or 6 years, but this is bad for the environment. On the other hand, when we use real trees, we can reuse them. We can decorate some branches, as you said before, during the whole year. After 5-10 years, we can replant this tree in our gardens or in our field.
And it's always good to plant trees. So tell us then, if you will, George, where we can buy these trees, because I think the department has already opened for business, hasn't it, in several areas of Cyprus?
There are some trees within our nursery, small trees. If they need bigger trees, they may ask from private nurseries.
And the prices I saw printed in the paper, very reasonable. 1.5 metre high tree, €6, and black pine trees up to 2 metres, selling for about €14.
Yes.
Very reasonable, cheaper even than one of those awful plastic ones. And that's the Forestry Department spokesman George Constantinou. And you can find those trees in the Athalassa Nursery in Nicosia, at Decalia, in Fassouri, in Polemidia, Katopafos, Platania and Panaya in Paphos district. I'm sure it's all on your website, is it, George, Forest Department?
Yes, the people can look in our website, all the information. Also, the price list is found in our website.
Thank you very much indeed to George Constantinou from the Department of Forests, and a Merry Christmas to you, George.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you very much.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.